y'all were so quiet. I didn't know there were so many of you.
My name is Diana Baker Hoy, and I live in Precinct 312 in West Des Moines. Today, I'm honored to introduce you to Governor Martin O'Malley.
Diana, thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. West Des Moines. Focused on the caucuses, huh? It's exciting to be with all of you. This is my first event of the new year. and maybe it's our first event together, but let us hope not the last. Look, thank you very, very much for coming out here this morning, and thank you most especially for what you do for our country. I love your state. I love not only the beauty of your state, not only the warmth and the kindness of its people. I love the fact that you all take your responsibility in this presidential process so very, very personally and very, very deeply. Because you have it within your power to do that which our country needs so much right now, and that is to point the way forward. And you've done it before. So I want to talk with you a little bit here before we open it up to questions and answers. And by golly, if you have answers, I hope you'll raise your hand first. Because I'm on a search for answers. And I've been on a search for answers. How you doing, Finn? On a search for answers all over our country and all over your state. I was in Fairfield not long ago, and a woman came up to me and said, "Mr. O'Malley, this is my third time seeing you." I said, "Well, how am I doing?" She said, "You're doing very well. I'm seeing a lot of growth." I said, "Well, thank you. Is that how you and your husband decide who you're going to vote for?" She says, "As a matter of fact, we go to see as many of you as many times as we can, and whichever one grows the most, that's who we're for." Well, that's not a bad way. Growth is a good thing. Can be, right? If it leads to deeper understanding, the sort of understanding that precedes action. And there is an absolute direction to growth. And life in our country move in that direction. So let me share with you a little bit of a couple thoughts about the story we have the ability to write together, the story of our country. And let me begin by sharing with you a little bit about my story. My wife Katie and I have 4 great kids, Grace and Tara, and William and Jack. And our oldest daughter, Grace, is a first grade teacher at Walter P. Carter Elementary School in the heart of Baltimore City. And when she returned to her first grade class, 100% adorable African American kids eager to learn, the Monday after her father had announced for president several months ago, a little girl came up to her and she tugged her on the sleeve and she said, "Miss O'Malley, I'm not so sure about this idea of your father running for president. Because quite frankly, I kind of like Barack Obama." Well, we all like Barack Obama.
Yes. Yes.
8 years ago, when our country was this close to being plunged into the Second Great Depression, when the American dream appeared in the eyes of many families to be this close to extinction, you put forward a new leader in Barack Obama to move our country forward, and that is exactly what he's done. Not only the phenomenal leadership now with the Paris Accord and the potential now to address climate change, not only the Affordable Care Act, but most importantly, we now have achieved, because of President Obama's leadership, 69 months in a row of positive job growth. Our country is doing well. So that's the very good news. But look, our work is not done. There's still urgent work to do. The great poet laureate of the American dream, Bruce Springsteen, once asked, "Is a dream a lie if it don't come true? Or is it something worse?" Today in America, 70% of us are earning the same or less than we were 12 years ago. The trickle-down economic theories that failed voodoo economics that preceded President Obama's time in office can't be turned around in just 8 years. The same recklessness that nearly destroyed our economy on Wall Street still reigns today. There's urgent work to be done. Our middle class, truth is shrinking. Poor families becoming poor. There is a widening opportunity gap in our country. And this sort of injustice will not solve itself. But the good news is we can solve it. We can build on the good things that President Obama and Vice President Biden have done and restore the truth of the American dream for every family in America. Look, my own story is not a story of Democratic conversion. It's more a story of Democratic upbringing.
Yay!
I am, in fact, the only lifelong Democrat seeking the Democratic Party's nomination this year. My parents didn't plan it that way. It's just the way it worked out. But I was born one of 6 kids to Tom and Barbara O'Malley, 2 of the kindest, most generous, and patriotic people that God ever placed on the planet. They were born to the Second Great Depression, and then became part of that generation that Tom Brokaw called the greatest, even though they would never accept that accolade themselves. Wow. And you all know people like that. My dad flew 33 missions over Japan in a B-24 Liberator. Went to college on a GI Bill. My mom got her pilot's license at the age of 17 and flew in the Civil Air Patrol. They raised us, taught us to love our family, to love our country, and to love God. To understand that there is dignity in every person, that we all share a common good as Americans, that each of us is needed and each of us must try. My experience is not the experience of a senator or a congressperson. It's not the experience of a cabinet member or an advisor. Though I have many times assembled a terrific and diverse cabinet, and I have many times corralled the votes of the legislature to get difficult things done, my experience is primarily that of an executive, a mayor, and a governor. 15 years of experience bringing people together, getting difficult things done. What sort of things? First state to pass a living wage, raising the minimum wage, extending the prevailing wage, extending collective bargaining, passing fair share, making it easier, not harder, for people to vote. What a radical idea. Passing marriage equality, passing the DREAM Act, passing comprehensive gun safety legislation with a ban on combat assault weapons. Repealing the death penalty and creating a faster rate of job creation than our neighbors north or south of us out of the recession, defending the highest median income in America all through the recession, one of 7 states to defend a AAA bond rating. Those are all actions, not words. And what does that have to do with the here and now and the choice that you have to make for our country and moving us forward? Everywhere I've gone across our country, I hear 2 phrases. And if you listen to it yourself with your neighbors, you're going to hear those phrases as well. And they are the phrases new leadership and getting things done. We cannot be this dissatisfied with an economy where 70% of us are working harder but not getting ahead. We cannot be this frustrated with gridlocked, stalemated national politics where it seems our Congress seems more ready to shut us down than ever to move us forward, and think that somehow a resort to old ways is going to move us forward. Whenever our country has faced challenges, whenever our politics has been locked in gridlock and stalemate, our country, our party, puts forward new leaders. And let's be honest, this eagle flies best when its right and left wings are working.
Okay.
But right now, given the current state of the Republican Party, as the public scans the horizon for that new leader, it is critically important that they find that new leader in our party. And the good news is this: we can build upon the good work that President Obama has accomplished, and we will and we must, if only we return to our true selves. And remember that our economy is not money. It is people. It is all of our people. And therefore we must restore common sense wage and labor policies back to the center of our equation. Make the investments only we can make in the job-creating and opportunity-generating potential that is the United States of America. Square our shoulders to the great challenges of our times and make them our opportunities. Let me run through each of those. What do I mean by common sense wage and labor policies? I mean keeping the minimum wage above the poverty line all the time, paying overtime pay for overtime work, equal pay for men and women, making it easier for people to bargain collectively, passing paid family leave so women can participate more fully in the economic life of our country. And here's another one our grandparents always practiced. Want to get wages to go up? Then let's get 11 million of our neighbors out of the oftentimes off the books, underground, shadow economy by passing comprehensive immigration reform. You see, the genius of our country And our formula is a formula of actions to include more people more fully in the economic, social, and political life of our country. That's what makes a stronger middle class. That's what makes for shared economic growth. And that is the formula put into action in every generation that has earned us the brand. No other country on the planet has it, of being the land of opportunity. You see, you and I are part of a living, self-creating mystery called the United States of America, but the promise that's at the heart of that mystery is a very concrete thing that says when you work hard, you should be able to get ahead. Secondly, investments in our own country. No people ever gave their children a better future by making their country weaker. That's not the way the real world works. And therefore, just as I did in my own state, we need to invest more in the education of our children. In my own state, memo to Governor Branstad, instead of cutting education, we increased education funding by 37%. Made our schools #1 in America 5 years in a row. Treated our teachers as the professionals that they are. And our kids and parents did not disappoint. But also investments in our infrastructure, right? Investments in rural broadband, the new infrastructure of a new economy. And also investments in educating our people and our workforce at higher and better levels. I talked about my dad going to college on a GI Bill. My 2 oldest daughters, Grace and Tara, they went to college on a mountain of bills. No other man, Iowa, has ever stood before you running for president of the United States with a greater amount of college debt on his wife and his back. It is a sign of our times. You have to laugh because it hurts too much to cry. Doesn't need to be this way. We're the only advanced nation on the planet that saddles our kids today with a lifetime of debt. I've put forward a plan to move us to debt-free college in the next 5 years. And these are the things that move us forward. Third and finally, the great challenges of our times. And there are many. The changing nature of conflict, the vulnerability that creates in our own politics for us to surrender our values and our freedoms and our compassion as a people in the face of global terror. Yes, that's a big challenge, but we're up to this challenge. Another big challenge, climate change. The greatest business opportunity to come to the United States of America in 100 years. And once again, Iowa points the way forward. 30% of your energy now comes from clean Iowa wind. And it wasn't there 15 years ago. It employs 4,000, heading to 7,000. I saw it on the billboard on the way in from the airport. Employs 4,000 people in a brand new industry. And the great thing about those big component parts, you all see rumbling down your highway on the back of those trucks? Those parts are too damn big for it to make any sense to import them from China. So they have to be manufactured here. I put forward in your state 15 goals to move our country forward, included among them, and I'm the only candidate to do this, a plan to move us to a 100% clean electric grid by 2050. Cutting youth unemployment in half in the next 3 years by making national service a universal option for every young person in America. Eradicating childhood hunger in the United States of America, where no child should go to bed hungry. Cutting deaths from guns and gun violence in half in the next 10 years. Look, in conclusion, these are the ambitions that are worthy of a truly great people. These are the ambitions that our children need for us to pursue if we're to give them a future that's healthier, more secure, and with more prosperity. These are the ambitions that are in keeping with the legacy of our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. We can forge a new foreign policy of engagement and collaboration. We can forge a new national security strategy of threat reduction and new alliances to make this world a safer place. But all of those things depend on our making ourselves stronger here at home. It's the power of our example. It's the power of our principles. I truly believe that we are standing on the threshold of a new era of American progress. And if you have any doubt of that, when you're trying to tune down Donald Trump and the other messages coming through, just talk to our young people under 30. Because you'll rarely find among them young people that deny climate change is real or think their government shouldn't do something about it. You'll rarely find young Americans under 30 that want to slam the door in the face of Syrian refugee families fleeing genocide, or who want to bash new American immigrants or deny rights to gay couples or their children. All of this tells me that we are moving to a much more connected, a much more compassionate, and much more generous place. We have only need of new leadership and a faith in one another to join forces together, to speak to the goodness within our country, to call it forward, and to move forward together ourselves. Look, I need your help. I have seen it time and time again here in Iowa. You do it better than any other state in the nation. You can change the arc of our country's history. You can put forward new leadership. There are 3 of us in this race. And you guys have always demonstrated a penchant for upsetting the apple cart on caucus.
There you go.
And of the 3 of us in this race, I'm the only one that can still upset the apple cart.
There you go. Woo!
So look, I need you. This is not an ordinary campaign year. When the leading candidate for the Republican nomination, Donald Trump, feathers and boosts his poll numbers every week by making consistently more overtly fascist and racist appeals, this is not an ordinary year. This is nothing less than a fight for the soul of the United States of America. And many people have said to me, Governor, you got a tough fight ahead of you. Well, you know what? When I ran for mayor of Baltimore, it wasn't because I thought it would be easy. When I stepped up to pull my state through a recession, I knew that that would not be easy. I've always been drawn to the tough fights. I think the toughness of the fight is the way the hidden God has of telling us we're actually fighting for something worth saving.
Yeah.
The American dream is worth saving.
Yes.
Our country is worth saving. Our children's future is worth saving, and this planet is worth saving. I need your help, and I thank you all so much for coming out here today. It changed with the attacks of September 11th, and if we had any doubt that it has changed, then those attacks recently in San Bernardino reminded us, in fact, that it has changed. Gone are the days of nation states squaring off in big battle ranks on a battlefield, white flag at the end, or a signing ceremony on the deck of the USS Missouri. I believe that the proper approach to confronting genocidal evil, which ISIL is the coalition approach, broad coalition, not big American divisions in the middle of the desert, which serve as a recruitment tool for replacing the battlefield casualties, but to work in coalition. To that end, I think we need to give rise to the concept of a global commons, if you will. And when safe havens arise because of nation-state failures and the vacuums that creates for safe havens like ISIL, I think we have a responsibility to join with other like-minded people in the region and in this world to address and contain and defeat that sort of evil. And so I believe that but I also believe that we need to dial up diplomacy and the pace of diplomacy, and we need to dial up sustainable development. I plan to make the director of USAID a direct cabinet appointment in my administration. We need to combine all 3 of those, not just defense, but our diplomatic and sustainable development as well. Secondly, we're still a little bit stuck in the Cold War mindset that there's the Soviet Union and there's us, or the post-Cold War mindset that now's the time for us to go even scores with people that weren't with us in the Cold War. And I think we need to break out of that. There are going to be times when China joins with us in very, very collaborative and constructive and engaged ways. Perhaps climate change. That partnership with the United States could be the salvation of this planet. And there will be times when Russia will need to join with us in constructive ways, as they did a little earlier in forcing Assad to give up his chemical weapons. There will be times when Russia and China have to be confronted, and when we have to stand firm against whether it's territorial aggressions in the South China Sea or whether it's the sort of invasions in the Crimea and the like. And we have to be adaptable enough and flexible enough to accommodate these different alliances and these different alignments of interests. Third, with regard to the Middle East, I believe that the best hope for a lasting peace is a two-state solution. And I believe that the United States needs to stick to that belief, continue to call the parties back to the table, and push for a two-state solution. I know it's hard, I know it's frustrating. I know that there are actions on both sides that make that seem very, very elusive. But I believe it's our best hope. And our country has a gift for being able to peer through the darkness of hopelessness and bring people together across very ancient divides, just as nationalists and loyalists in the north of Ireland, who before we got involved thought they'd never see an end to that 700-year sectarian. We need to be more relentless than the NRA. When we passed comprehensive gun safety legislation in our state, it was over a lot of opposition, including a lot of opposition in my own party. And I never saw the downtown Annapolis quite so packed as when we were debating the comprehensive gun safety legislation. But we organized and held rallies of our own, and we got it done. And when the NRA wrote to all of the hunters in our state and told them that I was trying to take away their hunting privileges, I pulled the licenses of all the hunters in our state. And I wrote to them on governor's stationery with a stamp and everything. And I said, thank you for being a hunter. We need your hunting traditions in our state, otherwise we won't be able to maintain our open space. And by the way, let me tell you about the lies the NRA is telling you about our gun safety legislation. I never met a self-respecting hunter that needed an AR-15 to down a deer. I say this, we have a big debt because we fought a protracted 15-year war and we weren't asked to pay for it as we did it. And one of those wars, we were led into a battle under false pretenses in Iraq, and we're still paying the price for it. So we're going to be a while paying down that debt. But the best path forward is to, by the way, President Obama doesn't get credit for this, but President Obama has constrained annual deficit spending to its lowest levels of any president in like 40 years. Did you know that? You hardly ever hear it, but it's true. So look, I think we have a revenue problem in our country. I think there's a big entitlement we can no longer afford. And that is the entitlement that the super wealthy among us, those making $1 million or more, feel that they are entitled to pay a much lower marginal rate than historically in this century they have. And also, if we did two things, if we were to raise the highest marginal rate for people over $1 million, that earn more than $1 million, to 45%, and we were to raise capital gains for the most part, so that it's taxed at the same rate as earnings from sweat and hard work and toil, you would generate $800 billion over the next 10 years conservatively. And that would go a long way not only to paying down the debt, but to paying for debt-free college and making the sort of investments we talked about in our country's future. So look, they're telling me I've got to get on the road and get going. I hope this won't be the last time we meet. I know it's not the first time for many of you. Are you seeing growth? Yeah. Where's Kat?
And Kira.
Oh, Kat and Kira, come forward. We've got 40 terrific organizers all across your great state and growing. And Kat and Kira are two of them. And they're working hard. They're on the phones. They're doing that contact and those conversations that makes the Iowa caucuses so exciting. But look, this is an audience participation sport.
Amen.
So I need your help. And one thing that these ladies will not tell you about themselves is if they don't sign up at least 20 new commit to caucus for O'Malley people every day, they go home and cry themselves to sleep. So don't let them go home sad. Don't let them go home disappointed. Look, I need you guys. I'm excited about this year. We've got about, Joe, 29 days, 30 days to go until the Iowa caucuses. Let's bend the arc of history. Let's move our country forward. Thank you guys very much. We continue to ramp up our contacts. I was very, very encouraged by the turnout here today. This was an area where we've been organizing, and it looks like we've got some good people coming forward. I think psychologically, a lot of Iowans put off making a commitment until after Christmas. And now that Christmas has passed, I think that people are entering now that decision and making up their minds. So we were certainly seeing in our own organization a lot more people committing to caucus for so I'm excited. I'm encouraged, actually. I think these next 30 days are going to be really exciting. And that the former county chair once said to me, Martin, the key to success in Iowa is organize, and catch fire late. So we've got to catch fire late. We've done the other two things.
Any concern at all that what happened in Ohio with the ballot there, with Rocky getting on the ballot and you not making it on there?
Yeah, I was disappointed. You know, in any challenger campaign, part of it is a battle of attrition, making sure that they don't drop any important balls. But I think this race is going to be changed here in Iowa. There's going to be, I believe that the outcome of the race is going to be set very early. I think people Iowa have the opportunity to, as they have before, to lift up the and in the meantime, work on a schedule, even through the snow and even through the Christmas holidays, but it's hard to gauge. But I was very, very delighted to see so I do think people are tuning in, and I do think that people want an alternative. I keep hearing the phrases new leadership and getting things done. That's